So let's talk about managing services. And a couple of things. This is an area, managing services is an area where there's a lot of work going on right now. We're starting to understand it better. And because there are so many different service type situations, there's not one size fits all approach to managing services. So we can talk about some of the areas that people are finding beneficial in managing services. One of the first lessons in service marketing is this idea of internal marketing. This is kind of like the big discovery of the last 20 years. Is if your employees aren't on board, how are they going to sell the service? I'm visiting my friend, and many years ago, my friend lived in St. Louis, and we went to this very fancy restaurant in St. Louis that was famous for the Yorkshire pudding. And we were all excited because we never had Yorkshire pudding, so we all get in there and we're all dressed up, and this is back when, you know, a fancy meal was a big deal for us. And we get to the restaurant and sit down, and we all go, "We'll have the Yorkshire pudding." And the server said, "We're out." And he said, "That's okay, it's not very good anyway." So that's why I traveled 2,000 miles to go to that restaurant, is because it wasn't, again, so if the server's not on board, how are they going to get the customers engaged with the service? From a managerial perspective, if you don't treat your employees well, how can they treat the customers well? Yes?
Really big with the tech companies in San Francisco, they evangelize. Their employees are brand evangelizers.
Oh, so in the tech sector, getting in this is employees are brand evangelists. Yeah. Absolutely, and not just in services. And I remember many years ago, when I was in Toledo, the local GM plant or General Motors was running a promotion where if an employee referred a friend that bought a car, they got a really cool jacket. And all of a sudden, the employees were talking up the quality of the GM cars because, again, getting them on board as opposed to, I remember talking about this once and talked to somebody in this actual class where they had talked about working at a hospital. And they walked into work one morning, and there's a big banner across the sign that says, "We're the friendly hospital." And thought to herself, "Oh, so we're friendly now. Well, that's good to know." Somebody bothered to tell us that we're the friendly hospital, and how are we going to be friendly? So again, you need for the employees to buy into the customer experience, and just what is the experience. If you've been over to Stonestown, the Avita store, you go in there and they are wearing dark clothing and will offer you a glass of relaxing, calming tea while you're shopping for their toiletries. Again, just trying to create a mood, trying to create the experience, but the employees have to sell the experience. The employees have to sell the mood. Poor attitude leads to poor service provision. A grocery store that's not far from here that I used to just cringe every time I went because you could just see management publicly chastising staff in front of the customers, and you could just see how crummy the people felt, and you didn't get very good service in that store. That's changed. Another way of thinking of managing services is this idea of service as theater. And the idea here, again, we talked about from the service provider, you want to have a planned service experience that the customer is going to have. And it's management's responsibility to create the set, the physical facilities in which the service is going to take place, define the service experience, and then write the script. And you have your employees who are the people who carry the script. And what makes this fun is both the customer and the service provider have to work together to create the service. So it's the job of the service provider to guide the customer through the experience, joyfully provide the service because of the internal marketing that they've done, help the customer understand their role, and the customer's role is to participate. When I was in college, I worked as a food service liaison in a restaurant, and it always used to drive me nuts when you'd say, "What would you like?" and they say, Surprise me. I don't know. Surprise me. I got a surprise for you. Wait till you taste this. But again, if you don't cooperate with the service provider, they can't. And similarly, it's important for the customer, the service provider, to guide the customer through the service, especially if there's something unusual about it. I was at a restaurant not too long ago where it was an unusual format, and we sat down and they said, "Have you been to this restaurant before?" I said, "No, we haven't." I said, "Good. Let me explain to you how things work here." Again, so that you wouldn't have anxiety or because it's different, you know how different is bad because of this whole cognitive miserly thing. So in advance, just say it's going to be a little different. Let me show you how it's going to be, and that way we can enjoy this together, as opposed to you being surprised and complaining that it's not the way the other restaurants do it.